Let's do a quick review on the divisions of the nervous system before we move on, just so you understand where we are right now. Now, the nervous system can be divided into the central and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord, and it is located in the dorsal body cavity. So if you remember from the earlier labs and lectures, we looked at body cavities, and the brain and spinal cord are the two things that are contained in the dorsal body cavity. And the information that the central nervous system receives from other parts of the body is processed in the central nervous system, and the information that get in here determines the other outputs in the body. Everything that lies outside the brain and the spinal cord is considered a part of the peripheral nervous system. So the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves that communicate information to the central nervous system is called the peripheral nervous system. So primarily, the peripheral nervous system contains extensions of the brain, of the nerves from the brain and the spinal cord to everywhere else in the body. Now, the peripheral nervous system can be divided into the sensory divisions and the motor divisions. The sensory division is the afferent division. Oops. The afferent division are the neurons that carry sensory information and impulses towards the central nervous system, whereas the afferent division are the neurons, specifically the motor neurons, that carry impulses away from the central nervous system. And the sensory division can further be divided into visceral sensory division and somatic sensory division. The somatic sensory division are going to receive information from the skin, joints, and skeletal muscle. And the visceral sensory division are going to receive information from the deep. Visceral means deep, if you remember. So deep organ structures. And both of these divisions are going to transmit information to the central nervous system, either the brain or the spinal cord. And this where information is integrated, and then the central nervous system is again going to send a message to the peripheral nervous system to perform the actual action in the end. Okay, so afferent division always carries information to the central nervous system, and the motor division always carries the command from the central nervous system to other parts of the body. Okay, so this is the way in, and this is the way out of the central nervous system. Now, similarly, motor division can also be divided into the visceral motor divisions and the somatic motor divisions. The visceral motor division controls everything in our body that we have no conscious control over, like the heart, the blood pressure, the temperature, and the pH of the body, the concentration of hormones. None of these can be consciously controlled. Digestion. So all of these will be a part of visceral motor division. Now, the somatic motor division will control the skeletal muscles, both voluntary and involuntary contractions in the muscles. The other name for the visceral motor division is the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic means automatic, because you do not have any volunteer or conscious control over the systems. This is also called the autonomous or the autonomic nervous system. So we are going to focus on mainly the autonomic nervous system in this chapter. The autonomic nervous system or the visceral motor division is completely involuntary, and this can be divided into the sympathetic division and the parasympathetic division. So in this chapter, you need to make sure you understand how the visceral motor division functions and what are the differences between the visceral motor divisions, the sympathetic and parasympathetic division. How do they differ? So let's take an example. Yesterday, my house is on a very busy corner, and the neighbor's house on the other side is on the other side of a busy road. They have a Jack Russell Terrier that comes out of nowhere and jumps at people walking by. So yesterday, a lady was walking, and this little Jack Russell Terrier just came out of nowhere and started barking at her. She got startled, and obviously she tried to protect herself, so she tried to take off running. And then she suddenly realized that the dog was on the other side of the fence. Okay, so she calmed back down and continued to walk, right? So when the dog jumped at the woman, her body went through stress. She got frightened, and to protect herself, her mind told her to run as fast as she can. So she took off, okay? So her heart rate increased and her pupils dilated, and she suddenly became aware of her surroundings and more alert, okay? Because the dog attacked her. So she was defensive. And this effect was due to the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for what we call the fight or flight response. So you either fight or you take off running, okay? So the moment she realized that the dog was on the other side of the fence, her body begins to relax, okay? And she starts calming down, and her body basically conserves energy. So when she relaxes down, her parasympathetic division is active. Okay, the parasympathetic division has the opposite effect of the sympathetic division. The parasympathetic division is called the rest and digest response. When the parasympathetic division kicks in, your body calms down and you conserve more energy. Okay, so the organs that take part in the sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions are usually dual innervated. Dual innervation, okay? Because they'll contain one set of neurons responsible for the sympathetic effect and another set of neurons responsible for the parasympathetic effect, okay? So anytime during this chapter, if you get confused, you make sure you look at this flowchart to understand where you are. And we are going to focus on sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Remember, sympathetic response or sympathetic nervous system is responsible for the fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic division is responsible for calming you back down. So it's called the rest and digest response.